Hi everyone and welcome to Saturday Night Crafting. I thought I would switch it up tonight and do a more informative video. I thought we would talk about adhesives and that I would give you my sort of top 10 adhesive hacks or tricks. I think adhesive is probably one of the most important things in card making. It can make or break your card. It can give you a great experience or a really bad experience. So I thought I would share with you my top 10 adhesive hacks. That includes all kinds of adhesive, temporary and permanent. And I thought I would start by sharing my sort of top adhesives and what I keep on my desk and what I've got to hand at all times, and then I can share with you my hacks. So the first thing that I always want to have is a really good liquid glue. I use liquid glue 24/7 in my card making. It is the primary adhesive I use for my cards. My favorite one is the Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. This has been on my desk forever. This is the top one. If I had to pick a good second or third adhesive to use that's similar, then I also really like the Aleene's fast grab tacky glue. It's nice and thick like the Nuvo one, and it's not very watery, so I don't get any warping of my cardstock. I also really like the Craftelier tacky glue. That's quite good as well. One of the other liquid glues I like is the Craftelier Blok glue. This is a quick drying clear vinyl adhesive, so it's really good for doing big bulky embellishments. The probably second best thing in my office that I use probably daily in my crafting is a low tack tape, and I have become a total convert to the scrapbookdotcom mint tape, and that's what this is here. You can get it in these 4 different sizes and I use it all the time. I use it for masking, I use it for holding down things. It's a fantastic low tack tape, so it is basically post-it note on a sticky roll. So the next things I always have in my office are foam tapes and sticky tapes. My favorite sticky tape is the Sukwang tape, or I believe scrapbook.com's version is the same manufacturer as this one. So they're very strong, really good. I use this in scrapbooking and in bookbinding and bookmaking, journal making. This is the one that I absolutely love, but this is a super cheap non-branded one, and I also really like it as well. It does the job. If I'm doing card making, then I absolutely don't mind a cheap one. You really don't need expensive double-sided tape. You can get them from the dollar store or the pound shop. They're really cheap and easy, and so honestly just a decent roll of double-sided sticky is all you need. I also have Redline tape. This doesn't matter where you get this from, any shop that sells it. It is like super glue in a tape roll form. It is ultra sticky, perfect for sticking down things like ribbon. It sticks really well to fabric and all sorts of other materials, so some Redline tape is really great, and you don't need to spend a fortune on that either. And then I've got foam tape. You know, foam tape from the pound shop, dollar store, foam tape from craft stores. It doesn't really matter as long as it is sticky. The various tapes are great to have in your stash as well. And then last but not least, a glue stick. I always have a glue stick to hand. You never know when you might just need a quick little fix of something, and a glue stick is brilliant. So there are 2 more that I forgot to add as well. Is a removable adhesive is really good to have in your stash. I have this one, I don't think it's made anymore, it's Dot and Dab. And then also a good glue gun. I have gone through about 4 or 5 different glue guns in my lifetime, and this one here is my favorite, mostly because it's nice and small and it has a fine tip on the end, something that's really tricky to work with, and that is Vellum. I'm also going to cover acetate, which is completely see-through. So Vellum can be a tricky one to stick down because it is semi-transparent, so you can really see adhesive through it. If you put liquid glue on it, it really shows up very clearly and obviously, and if you use tapes and things, you can usually see that through it. But my favorite trick to adhere Vellum is to cover the entire thing in adhesive. So I have got this roll of double-sided sticky tape from scrapbook.com. You can buy this kind of stuff in sheets in A4, A5, and I like to buy this big roll. It is insanely good value for money. I didn't think I would get this much on it, and it is 6 inches wide, so it's really nice and wide. So I keep this for when I do things like adhering Vellum. So all I'm going to do is take a piece roughly the size of my paper, and then I'm just going to simply put it down on as carefully as I can. If this was a double-sided sticky sheet, then what I would do is peel back just the edge and place just the edge on it, and then gradually peel the rest off so it's nice and flat. I'm going to do this the best I can to get no bubbles in it, but I possibly might get some air bubbles under. It's quite tricky to do. So I'm going to just adhere that first edge down. Then I'm going to grab my bone folder. I'm doing this a bit backwards because I'm right-handed, so it's a bit tricky. And I'm just going to kind of gradually push that along there just to try and make sure I haven't got air bubbles underneath it. And now what we've got is a completely covered piece of vellum. So now you won't see where I put the adhesive because the entire thing is adhesive. And this is one of the best ways to adhere vellum down. So once that adhesive is on there, then we can go ahead and take a die, or you could directly put it straight onto your card. Whatever you're going to do with it, it's now ready to go. It's got the sticky on there, so I'm going to go ahead and die cut myself out a little piece. So once I've got that panel die cut and ready to go onto my card, all you need to do is just peel off the backing and stick that onto your card and just give that a firm press. Did get a couple air bubbles in there, but and this is also embossed, I should say. This is an embossed piece of cardstock, so this isn't sticking as brilliantly as I wanted, but this is a technique I've done many times. For example, on here, on this one, this is the exact same thing. I have die cut myself a little rectangle. I stuck it onto my background to kind of mute the background a little bit, added some embellishments and a sentiment. Again, I did a similar one on here. I've got the vellum there. It's been die cut out within a kind of roundy, distressed edge die. And then that kind of muted the background a little bit, added the embellishment on the top. So another way to cleverly adhere vellum is to only put the adhesive where it's covered. So with both of these panels, I die cut the panel that is the larger panel. So I die cut the larger heart and die cut the larger one of these. And then I created a frame by cutting another die cut, well, two die cuts together. I created the frame for each of these. I then adhered the vellum to my die cut frame just where the frame was, and then when I adhered it to the card, I again only put the adhesive right where that frame is, and then that way you've got a gorgeous looking panel with no adhesive on the back apart from where that frame cleverly hides it. So it's another way to disguise where your adhesive is. I've done the same thing on this card, however with this one I die cut two of these kind of edging dies, and then I sandwiched the vellum in between, and then that way, I don't know if you can hear it, I created a shaker card. So there are actually shaker bits behind the window, and then that way I could have the vellum be nice and clear and see-through. Well, not clear, but allowing that vellum to have that kind of muted look, but still offer a cool shaker card element. So as long as your adhesive is being hidden by something clever like a die cut frame, then you can also adhere your vellum to your cards in that way as well. Now another great adhesive trick when you're working with vellum or acetate, anything that's semi-translucent, is to use the sort of wraparound trick. And this is nothing new, you will probably all have seen it before, but it's where you're just going to adhere it on the back of your top bit of card. So your first layer on your card, your vellum will wrap around and adhere behind the cardstock, and then that way you don't have to worry about any adhesive behind the actual strip of vellum. So it works great for sentiments like this, or if you do some see-through panels like these, it works brilliantly for allowing you to have that clear layer but not stuck down on your card. So this again is wrapped around the front of my card and adhered behind that first panel. And it's just such an easy way to be able to use more materials to work with. Now that adhesive trick works really great as well when you have got a slightly see-through ribbon that you want to work with. So with obviously the clear ribbon, you can't put adhesive right behind it. It would be very obvious. So when it's kind of see-through, you can do the same trick by applying adhesive on the back and wrapping that ribbon around the sides of that card. So let's talk about intricate die cuts and adhering those to projects. So intricate die cuts, or even if you have little embellishments you've bought from a shop, can be really difficult to stick down. I'm going to share with you two different ways that you can stick them down and some little tips along the way as well. So there are two main ways you can adhere an intricate die cut. One is liquid glue and one is double-sided tape. So we'll start with the liquid glue. A lot of people might not have double-sided tape, or if you went to the shop and you bought a pre-made die cut, obviously you can't then put the adhesive on before that is created. So we are going to cover liquid glue for the things that you cannot put double-sided tape on, or let's say it's a very, very intricate die and your die cut machine isn't pressing as well as it used to, and therefore adding an extra layer like adhesive on the back is going to make it difficult to get through the machine and cut fully. This will be an option for you. So we're going to do our little die cut. And I'll do a few of them just to share with you a few different tricks. I've just got a piece of acetate here, so just a clear film. I'm using that on my surface so I don't get glue stuck to something I love. And all I do is I start with a little blob of glue. Now obviously you could come in and then just apply the glue and just kind of put it on very, very lightly onto the back. And then you could either then stick it onto your card or take your finger and just kind of rub it around a bit. I'm sharing with you how I do these on foil card so you can see the mess that you get, and then I'm going to share with you a trick on how to get rid of the mess. So as I've got my blob of glue, I grab a bit of sponge, so you could use any packaging sponge, kitchen sponge, anything spongy works. Dab my sponge into the glue, make sure I get a nice even coverage all over it, and then I'm just going to dab it on. And I make sure I'm really careful to not let this move, because once this die cut moves, you're going to get glue and adhesive on the underside of your die cut, which is obviously the foil. So if you feel like, oh, it might have moved, just pick it up and place it somewhere else and then carry on, because otherwise you will get glue all over that backside. But I will share with you how you get it off really quick and easy. If you do, it's just more effort. So once you've got a nice thin layer all over the back of that die cut, you can then go ahead and plop that down onto your card or your project. Super easy and quick, and it's on. Another way to add adhesive onto your die cut is to use a brayer to get a nice even flow. So what I like to do is just put a little line of glue, and this is my least favorite way, but I feel like this wastes more product, involves more cleaning as well, because I've got to clean the brayer when I'm done. But if you want a nice even spread, you can do this. There's also sponge brayers that you could use, but again, they're more expensive, and then you're gonna have to spend time cleaning that as well. So I feel like this is a bit more, I don't know, messy and uses more product, although it's less faff and it goes on pretty quick and easy. I do find you struggle to get a thick enough layer of glue sometimes as well. So those are the two methods. Now let's say you got some of your adhesive onto your foil die cut. I'm not sure you can see that. Just put some adhesive on there. It's stuck on the top. Easiest way, if you accidentally have glue seep out, is grab yourself a microfiber cloth. I say microfiber because there's no fibers that come off of this, and you just gently rub. Literally rub, gone in seconds. You want to do this when it's slightly damp or wet, comes off easily. So once your die cut is glued down, if you've had any squish out or spill over, grab your cloth and give it a gentle rub, and honestly it will come right off. So again, there's glue. I'm sticking glue all over the top of that. As long as it's not on your actual cardstock, if it's a foil piece of card, you can just gently rub over it and pull it all straight off. Super great tip to have if you're working with foil card. It works a dream. Now let's say your die cut machine works brilliant, you've got your die cut ready to go, your cardstock isn't too thick, you can add adhesive before you run it through your die cut machine to save you all the time and faff with liquid glue. So you need to be mindful of how thick your cardstock is and how much your machine can cope with. The thicker the cardstock, the more it might be difficult to run through your machine if you've got more layers. So be mindful of that. Don't push your machine too hard. If it doesn't want to go, it doesn't want to go, and don't force it or you will wreck the pressure in your machine. So my foil card is probably about 200 or so GSM. Any thicker than that, then I would adjust the sandwiches and make my own custom sandwich for my die cut machine to allow it to pass through with the layer of adhesive on the back. Now, as I shared with you before, I have this giant roll from scrapbookdotcom, so I can cover this piece easily, no problem. However, let's say you have not got a giant roll, you have got your dollar store or your pound shop roll of double-sided tape. It works just the same, not a problem. You're gonna take your tape and lie it down on the back and just layer it next to each other. You don't have to have a big roll for it to work. You will have a little bit more picking when you get to the end and you've die cut it. You will have a little bit more faff because you've obviously got 2 layers, or maybe more depending on how thick your tape was, to get through. Now another trick that I like to use if I've got that adhesive on the back ready to go is I will cut myself a little piece of thin fun foam and I'll pop that underneath, and that will make double sure that this die cut will cut all the way through those layers. Pull that off. And it doesn't matter too much if it hasn't cut fully all the way through those pieces, because it will have definitely cut through the top layer. So I can go ahead and take that off. And then sometimes, if you're lucky, you can peel away your die cut and leave behind all the inner bits. Sometimes not so lucky. Now another top tip, when you've got all these pieces still stuck inside your die, just take your finger and let them stick to your finger. If you struggle with any of the little ones, you can just take a little pokey tool, just kind of gently press onto them, and then they should stick to your finger for you and just pop right off. So once you've got all those little bits removed, you can then go ahead and simply place it onto your project, lie it down flat, and perfect. So this is an example where I used liquid adhesive to adhere my die cut embellishment down onto the front of my card. And this one here, I used some tape, double-sided sticky tape, and then die cut it first and stuck it down. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of my top tips is to use a hot glue gun for any bulkier items. Also, a hot glue gun is brilliant for things like ribbon, which you might struggle with sticking down and adhering nicely. As long as you put a little dot and then just give it a quick squish, avoiding obviously burning your finger, you can get a nice bit of ribbon stuck to your card quick and easy with minimal effort and no dry time. So let's talk glitter. Obviously you can adhere glitter down a few different ways, and there are 2 ways that I love to use glitter on projects that minimizes the mess that glitter can make. So the first adhesive trick again is to come in with double-sided tape. For this, I like to use a larger sheet of double-sided tape, so either using an A4 or A5 piece of tape, or again a roll like this. You're going to cut off a piece that will fit your cardstock or the project you're doing. This works great for doing die cuts. If you want a really glittery die cut and you want it done quick and easy so that you can carry on with your project, this works brilliant for that. So I'm going to stick down my adhesive, give it a firm rub with my bone folder. Now this method works great if you want to use multiple colors of glitter, because you can just do a little bit at a time as you pull the release sheet back, or you can cover the entire panel in glitter, which is what I'll do now because I don't really want to focus on glitter tricks. I just wanted to focus on adhesive tricks. I'm going to peel back the release sheet, and in this case, because I'm going to do the entire panel in one color, I'll just leave all that adhesive exposed. We can go ahead and sprinkle on our glitter. Put a bit on there, and then we can just take our finger, kind of rub it around, move it about, get the whole entire panel covered. You can either give it a really good burnish with your finger and just really rub it in. You could use a bone folder and just like press it really quite firmly in. Or a really great trick is just to take your release paper and really press that down and really rub that into that adhesive to get it really nice and strong and stuck. And then you've got your own DIY glitter cardstock with minimal falling off. Now, if you want your glitter to have more texture, to have more grip, if you want it to stay on your cardstock, not be flaking off at all, then a great option is mixing it with tacky glue. Now this trick is super easy and doesn't involve much. Tacky glue, a bit of water, and your glitter. And I've shared this with you guys so much, so I'm sorry for all my long-term subscribers because you've seen this trick so many times, but I love doing this with glitter. It works so well, and it makes such a beautiful end result. We're going to squish some of that glue onto our acetate or whatever non-porous surface you like to work on. We're going to sprinkle in some of that glitter. I'm going to use a palette knife to kind of mix it in. So I've got my paste, and all you need to do then here is you could either put a stencil down, stencil over it, you could just put it straight onto the card, you could do a nice thin layer, you could do a nice thick layer. So if you want a thin layer, you're just going to kind of scrape it on fairly thick. You could add a little bit more water to thin it out. If you wanted it to be more chunky, you can then kind of add some texture by plopping it on like that. And this will dry perfectly beautifully clear, and in the end look like this, but it will be fully stuck on your card. There will be no glitter flaking off at all because it's all adhered with that glue. So here are some examples of what I did. So here's one where I smeared it onto the background using the liquid glue. I also stenciled it through onto that flower as the top layer of the flower. Here is another one where I smeared the glitter onto the back of a piece of card. And then there's that trick with the vellum again. This is the double-sided adhesive on the back of that vellum to just make it stick on top of that card. Then this is one where I made a panel and gave it some texture. So I kind of plopped it like that on there with a few different colors. Oops, it's upside down, sorry. And that is using mica powder, I believe, rather than glitter. Then I've got a few examples of when I've used that in glitter paste as a stencil. Well, I've used it through a stencil to create my background. So there's one, and there's another. All of these cards I'm sharing with you are all cards that I have done in previous videos. I will do my best to link all those videos in the description box for you. However, I may forget, and I think I am sharing a lot of examples with you from a lot of different videos. But this is the texture paste video that I did. Now I have done plenty of embellishments in my day using the rubbing of the glitter technique, but this is a technique where I took scraps and I created an image and filled in the blanks with glitter. So you go ahead and put down bits of cardstock onto your double-sided adhesive, and then you fill in that adhesive with glitter to cover up all the sticky and give it a bit of extra shine and sparkle. And that's what I did on this card. I did pink on the top and the green on the bottom. Now in that same kind of technique, this is the one I did a couple weeks ago where I used the glue stick and old eyeshadows and gilding flakes, and I created fun, gorgeous papers that I then used as embellishments. So these are just glue stick, eyeshadow, gilding flakes, and that's all that is to make these gorgeous kind of patterns. So that's another great glue hack to use, or adhesive hack. Now this is probably an obvious one for most people. It's probably something you've already done, but there are people out there that do struggle with sticking down gems, and I thought I would point out the obvious way to kind of put gems down. Now sometimes I've seen people trying to get adhesive onto their gem and then stick it onto their card. Obviously the easiest way to put a gem on a card is to first stick your glue onto your card, put your glue wherever you might want those gems to go, and then pick them up and put them on. And I like to put pretty much all my glue down first so I can visually see where those gems are going to go, and if I like the position of those gems. And if you don't, sometimes you can get away with just scraping it off really quick and getting rid of that adhesive. Sometimes it will leave a little mark. On lighter cardstock it's much easier to do than darker. You can just take that glue off straight away, but it does help if you put your glue down first, get a visual if you like where those gems are going to go, and then go ahead and place those gems down. So you pick it up with your little sticky tool, plonk it down onto your glue and let it release. If you need a pokey tool to help release it, that will work really well as well. So I find it helps to put the glue first, visualize where you're going to put your gems, and then stick them down. Now another semi-obvious hack is to keep your glue upside down. I keep my glue stored like this with the lid facing down all the time. I find that then my glue is ready to go and it rarely ever gets clogged. I hardly ever have a problem with this getting clogged when it's facing down all the time. As I mentioned before, a really good low tack tape is so key in your stash. This is such a great tool for holding die cuts or holding letters or holding words, embellishments, whatever you want to put onto your card. It keeps them in place and doesn't wreck the surface of the material you're working with. Okay, so then that low tack tape has held it in place. It's also a nice thin low tack tape, so you won't get much of a mark left in it. And then I can just peel it off. And then I've got my hello left behind. We're pretending at the moment. Just having a little bit of imagination and pretending that there's another L there. You could obviously go ahead and insert that L in and run it through again, and then you've got hello, and then that could go on your card like so, and you could fill in the middle of the O when you're done. But you can get like perfect placement with your die cuts before you run it through your machine. And then once you've got it run through your machine, you can always take your letters and place them out exactly where you want them if you want these letters to be your focal point on your card. So let's say you've got your letters ready to go. You can just kind of line them all up using a ruler or a grid mat. Get them exactly where you want them. I'm not being perfect here, just doing it for the sake of the video. Then take your low tack tape, so I like to reuse mine, and then you can just simply stick it on, rub it down, and then if you haven't got adhesive on the back already, you can then flip it over, add on your adhesive, and stick it onto your project. So I've got the glue all over the back of my letters. I can simply take it, put it down onto my card exactly where I want it to go, give it a firm rub, and then I can leave this here until I know it's fully dry before peeling back the low tack tape, or I can just try and peel it back. I often like to leave it a little bit to make sure it's fully dry, but you can do that, and then you've got your perfect placement of your letters. Ignore the fact that mine's not perfect. But the low tack tape allows you to place die cuts where you want them to go without committing to that adhesive. Now, another top trick, which most people will know of, is if you've got an embellishment or a word or a sentiment or something that you want to stick down on your card and you want it on foam tape, it might be a bit tricky for you to get it in the right spot. You're a bit worried about sticking it down. For example, when I do a large panel like this one here, and I want to stick it very central. I didn't do this trick with this card, by the way, which is why it's not quite central. But I've got a big bit of foam on the back of it, and I want it to be very central on my card, and it's really hard to see because I'm lining it up over top of my card base, and I've only got a little border to work with. The top trick that you can do is put your foam tape down on the back of your item that you want to stick down. Now normally I would put a bit more foam tape than this, but I'm just going to put one line just to share with you because it's only a sample and I don't want to waste too much. So you're going to stick your foam tape on, and there's no rule out there that says you can't then put more adhesive on. So you can go ahead and add liquid glue onto the back of that foam tape, and that just means it's not going to be permanent straight away. If you've got foam tape, this just gives you the chance to stick your item down onto your project, and it gives you a bit of wiggle room before you secure it in place. Just allows you that little bit of time to breathe and get it exactly where you want it to be before you let it set. Now I wanted to quickly cover Redline tape. It's a really helpful tape for things like fabrics. So with my ribbon, as you can see here, all of my ribbon is held together by Redline tape. So I take a little piece of that and I don't chuck it, I reuse it, but that holds my ribbon from coming undone. Another great tip for adhering some ribbon down is to use the Redline tape. Now you can get Redline tape for quite cheap. You don't need to spend loads on it. It doesn't have to come from a fancy store. If it has got this red backing on it, it is very likely Redline tape. And it is super strong tape. And what I do is I just place a bit of it. Now it works best on non-sheer and see-through ribbon. As I shared before in my previous tip, for sheer and see-through ribbon, it is best to adhere it from behind the card. But if you've got a normal ribbon, which I could not find anywhere in my stash at the moment, you can apply Redline tape to the back. You can see it sticks beautifully. I've never had it come off on me. It adheres really well to fabric. And you can go ahead and peel the release paper off the back, or release plastic. And this stuff is tricky to get off. It is super staticky and super sticky and hard to get off. So you might want to use like a pokey tool to just get it lifted up. You just pull that off. And then you can place that directly onto your card. You can give it a nice firm tug so it's nice and straight. And then a firm press. Again, if you're not using sheer, clear, see-through ribbon, this is a perfect trick for that. And you can get it stuck straight on your card, and then you don't have to wrap it around at all. So if you want it nice and flat onto your card and you don't want any dimension behind your card, using Redline tape on the ribbon is brilliant, because it gives you that option to have ribbon on your card but not have to have the bulk behind it from adhering it behind. So you have very beautiful clean cut, and it's nice and flat on your card base. So Redline tape is fantastic for anything fabric. So I really hope you enjoyed this video and got some new little tips or tricks out of it. I know a lot of it is pretty samey, or tricks that you've probably done for years. I've probably missed a few along the way. I know I'm going to finish filming this video and then get really annoyed with myself at all the stuff that I forgot to mention to you guys, and all the tips and tricks that, you know, I thought would be useful. If you think of any that I haven't covered that I probably should have covered, just feel free to pop them in the comments section down below so that other people can have a read and see your kind of favorite top adhesive tip or trick. But I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please do give it a like, a share, a comment, a subscribe, as all those kinds of things keep my channel going. And as per usual, all the things I've used in this video today, I will do my best to link down below for you. I will do my best to link the videos that I've shared with you today for these techniques with adhesive down there as well. But I may forget some, so just pop a little message in the comments and hopefully I will be able to get back to you and link that in the description box. So I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. So take care. Bye.